Let's talk about Doctor Strange. So, the Doctor Strange Marvel film has been out on Blu ray or DVD for a few days now. About a week before that, it was out on digital video, and it was in theaters at some point. So, if you haven't seen it and you're watching a YouTube video about it, yes, there are going to be fucking spoilers. This is on you. This isn't on me. I didn't ruin it for you. If you call yourself a fan and you haven't seen it, but you're watching a video about it for some reason, don't complain to me. I don't want to hear it. It's your fault. It's not my fault. So, let's get into the film. Overall, broad strokes, I enjoyed it. One of the things Marvel does really well is introducing these new characters, either in their own movies or as cameos or, extended appearances in other films. That lets us know sort of what their unique power set is, what their personality is, and how we can expect to see them in future movies. It really does paint this giant tapestry of these characters that they're creating, and they've earned the payouts. The Avengers felt fantastic. Avengers 2 felt a little bit rehashed, but still, it's fun to see these different characters interact, how they're going to face potentially epically global or universal destructive villains, and what each unique character and their skill sets brings to the table. And I really am happy that Doctor Strange is now part of the MCU. Finally, there's the metaphysical and the magical aspect, sort of flirted with Thor, but now really firmly established in the Marvel Universe. It's not to say this is a perfect film. Really, to me, this kind of came across as if someone took a copy of Iron Man 1 and Chris Nolan's Inception and just sort of chopped them together and said, yeah, it's a new movie, it's a Marvel film. There is a lot of the Inception visuals, but that's not to say this film isn't in general just visually arresting. They did a fantastic job with special effects. There's a lot of CGI, but it works. It looks good. And while it does seem kind of familiar or perhaps rehashed, it still works relatively well within that individual universe. My bigger problem with it are the parallels between Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr. and Dr. Stephen Strange and Benedict Cumberbatch. Facial hair aside, they both have dry senses of humor. They both come from families of privilege. They suffer some sort of setback. In Tony Stark's case, he's captured by the not Taliban. Has to build a suit to escape, but then through that, goes on a path where he realizes he's sort of been on the wrong side of war and battle. Now wants to become a peacekeeper rather than a warlord or a creator of weapons. And Stephen Strange, a self-obsessed, if not very successful doctor, realizing there is a greater world out there that he has the potential to be a part of and affect change in. Of course, in Stephen Strange's case, he's texting while driving, gets into a wreck. Kids, if you don't take anything else away from this movie, don't text and drive. You'll wreck your hands. When Western medicine can't fix him, he goes and finds Eastern medicine and joins a Kung Fu cult. And not only is it a Kung Fu cult, but they're going to make him a sorcerer. Is one of the things, even though early on he has some skepticism and he's shown a few examples of how maybe there is this metaphysical plane or, other realms that he's not interested or aware of, he really buys into it quickly. For someone who's spent their entire lives as a person of science, boy, does skepticism just go out the window and acceptance kind of come in. Also, we're led to believe that Stephen Strange has an eidetic memory, that it's a photographic memory, much like Fox Mulder in the X-Files. And that's why he can become such an elevated sorcerer so quickly. Okay, they're narrative threads. I'll give it to him. But again, this is kind of one of the reasons why this isn't one of my favorite Marvel films. There is a little bit of sloppy storytelling. Some of the characters don't feel overall that fleshed out. And even the final battle with Johnny Weepy Eyes that totally isn't Ronan the Accuser, and the giant world evil entity that also isn't Peter Quill's dad, but is, in actuality, Benedict Cumberbatch in a mocap suit. Admittedly, at the end, it is kind of fun to see Benedict Cumberbatch versus Benedict Cumberbatch, but I didn't feel that great sense of gravity. It felt a lot more kind of Ultron and a lot less the Chitauri. And while the Chitauri were kind of dumb villains, at least at the end of the original Avengers, I felt like there was some cards on the table, some stakes. And this isn't one of those Marvel movies that really does a good job of hammering home, at least in my opinion, the grandiose danger posed by the final villains. Now, as they express in the film, the Avengers are the ones that defend the physical Earth. Doctor Strange and his compadres are the ones that defend the metaphysical Earth against alternate universes, alternate evils, that sort of thing. It was a good end. It was a hero's journey, but to me it lacked a little bit of that punch. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to watch it again. Now, am I going to turn around and watch it the next couple days? Probably not. I will rewatch it. And I like these kind of movies. This is my wheelhouse. So obviously, they've already sort of got me on the hook. But again, what Marvel does so well is even with kind of a subpar release like this, it still makes me more excited for the next film. And we can have that whole debate. You know, you look at the Star Wars thing, Rogue One versus The Force Awakens. What is it more fun, to watch a movie that just continually builds the stakes for the next film to keep you wanting more, or a self-contained film that pays out really well on its own? And while we can complain as cinema fans that there are less and less self-contained stories and more building of trilogies and universes and ad nauseum continuation of storylines, I really do think there's a place for both. Marvel definitely exists a lot more in the latter, in which we're seeing a continuation of a storyline that arguably most of us won't live long enough to see the end of. But I like being along for the ride. Even if there are going to be some chops in the water, a little bit of wake, I still like taking the trip. I like meeting these new characters, and if their solo outings aren't the most exciting for me, I'm okay with that. I still enjoy seeing the first few Thor movies, even though they're not the best, if anything, for the payout in Avengers 2, where Steve Rogers slightly moves Mjolnir, and then Vision hands it to Thor. That's a big payout, and you don't get there without taking the ride, without being along for the full stretch. So, not my favorite film. I'm going to do this for it. It's a little thumbs up, a little thumbs neutral. I'll watch it again, but I'm happy to be along for the ride, Marvel. You're still doing well. You're doing a little bit of recycling, a little bit of rehashing. I get it. You've got big characters, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, whose contracts are about to expire. Maybe you want to let those fans know, the new fans, hey, this is familiar. Robert Downey Jr. may not be here, but that similar character's still here. It's a little bit lazy storytelling, but you're still doing a good enough job. I'm on board. Now, if we look at the other side of the fence with the DC movie universe, we're going to make that another video. I have too much to say about that. It's not near as kind. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. Let me know what you think about Doctor Strange or the Marvel movies in general. Maybe it's your favorite damn movie ever. Maybe you saw Doctor Strange and you're like, The Godfather is garbage. Give me Stephen Strange. I'll watch that 6 days a week. I'd love to know that. Any input you have, anything you want to hear me talk about down the road, please leave the comments below. I appreciate you tuning in. Can't wait for the next one. It's not going to be near as nice.